Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're zeroing in on something really critical. It can honestly be the difference between marketing magic and just, well, setting your budget on fire.
Yeah.
We're talking about setting the right campaign objectives. And we're calling this deep dives. What most marketers miss when setting campaign objectives. I mean, you can have the most amazing creative, the smartest copy, but if your target isn't clear, you might as well be shouting into the wind.
Absolutely. It's really something how often you see campaigns with brilliant pieces that just don't deliver. They don't hit the business results.
Right.
And often, it boils down to not having those well-defined goals right from the start.
And that's exactly where the SMART framework comes in handy. It's, it's a classic, but for a good reason, such a powerful tool for turning those kind of vague hopes into actual concrete targets.
Yeah, SMART specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. It's less a rigid list, I think, and more like a lens to really focus your marketing plan.
A lens, I like that.
It pushes you past the fuzzy stuff, like let's grow our audience, to really nail down what success actually looks like in real terms.
Exactly. And this deep dive, well, it's your shortcut to really getting how to use the SMART framework effectively, especially for your paid marketing. We're going to break down each part, give you practical ways to actually use it.
Yeah, because the data doesn't lie. Marketers who work with really clear, well-defined goals, they consistently see a much higher return on investment. It just makes sense if you know where you're going, you're far more likely to find a good way to get there.
Okay, so let's really dig in then. Why are SMART goals so fundamental?
Yeah.
Especially in paid marketing, which can, let's face it, pretty choppy waters sometimes.
Well, beyond that big ROI boost we mentioned, SMART goals offer like a whole foundation of benefits. First up, they give your campaigns crystal clear direction. Everyone on the team knows exactly what you're aiming for.
No confusion.
None.
Oh.
And second, they force you to establish clear metrics. You're not just going on gut feeling anymore. You've got actual numbers to track how you're doing.
Right. It's like you're trying to win a race, but you don't actually know where the finish line is. Kind of pointless.
Precisely. And SMART goals also give you a really solid basis for allocating your budget. When you know your specific targets, you can make much smarter calls about where to put your money for the best effect.
Okay, that makes sense.
Plus, they become your benchmark for performance evaluation. You can look objectively at what's working, what's not.
And maybe the biggest thing, they make sure your marketing isn't just off doing its own thing in a corner.
Exactly. SMART goals are key for aligning what you're doing in paid marketing with the bigger strategic goals of the whole business. Your campaigns actually become direct contributors to the company's bottom line, not just isolated marketing stuff.
Okay, let's tackle that first letter then. S for specific. What does it really mean to make a marketing goal specific?
Specificity is, well, it's all about cutting out the ambiguity. You've got to define precisely what result you're aiming for. A vague goal. It's like trying to hit a target wearing a blindfold. A specific goal shines a light on exactly what you need to hit.
Okay, give us an example, like a bad one versus a good one.
Sure. So a not-so-great goal might be increase leads from Facebook ads. It's just too broad already.
Yeah, increase by how much? What kind of leads?
Exactly. Now, a much stronger specific goal would sound more like generate 500 qualified B2B software leads from Facebook ads targeting IT decision makers in companies with 100+ employees within Q3. See the difference?
Wow, yeah. That's night and day. The second one gives you so much more to work with.
Totally. The key things in a specific goal are a really well-defined target audience, like the IT decision makers in our example. It states the desired outcome clearly, 500 qualified leads for a specific software type, and the channel-focused Facebook ads. You might even add geographic scope or maybe the specific products you're pushing. The clearer you are up front, the better off you'll be.
So really getting into the nitty-gritty details is what makes it specific.
Absolutely. It cuts down on misunderstandings and just makes sure everyone involved is pulling in the same direction, understanding the exact same target.
All right, let's move to M, measurables. How do we make sure these goals aren't just nice ideas, but things we can actually, track?
Measurability, yeah. That's about identifying the solid metrics, the key performance indicators, or KPIs. These let you actually gauge your progress. I mean, if you can't put a number on it, how can you improve it? Or even know if you hit the goal?
Good point.
You got to ask yourself, how will I know when I've done this? What data points will actually prove it?
And I guess the right metrics depend a lot on what the campaign is actually trying to do, right? Like awareness versus leads.
Oh, absolutely. They vary quite a bit. So, for instance, if you're aiming for brand awareness, your key metrics might be things like impressions, how many times your ad got shown or reached the unique number of people who saw it.
Hmm.
Maybe brand lift studies, share of voice, ad recall, things like that.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
And what if the main goal is generating leads?
Right. For lead gen campaigns, you'll definitely want to track the total number of leads, of course. But also, the quality of those leads, maybe use a lead score.
Ah, good one.
Yeah, and cost per lead is crucial. Then there's the lead to opportunity ratio, how many leads actually turn into potential sales deals, and ultimately the number of sales qualified leads, or sequels. Those are key.
Got it. And for those of us in e-commerce, what should we be measuring?
E-commerce is often a bit more straightforward, thankfully. You're typically looking at total revenue generated, obviously. Return on ad spend, or ROAS, is huge. Average order value, customer acquisition cost, and of course the big one, conversion rate, what percentage of people who visit actually buy something.
So it really boils down to picking the metrics that directly show if you're hitting that specific outcome you defined earlier.
Precisely. You need to pinpoint the KPIs that give you a clear, unbiased look at how you're doing against that specific goal.
Great. Next up is A, achievable. How do we find that balance? You want to aim high, but not set goals that are just impossible, right? I've seen teams get really demoralized by that.
That's such a critical point. Yeah, achievability is about setting goals that stretch you, that push your team and resources, but not so far that they become totally unrealistic or, like you said, demotivating. It really needs a frank look at what's actually possible, given where you are now and what's happening outside.
So what are the main things to consider when you're trying to figure out if a goal is achievable?
Well, you definitely need to look hard at your past performance data. What have you actually achieved before in similar efforts? Then look at your current resources. What budget do you have? People, tech.
Right.
You also have to factor in what the market's doing right now, who your competitors are and what they're up to, and of course, any hard budget limits you're working with.
So it's definitely not just wishful thinking. There's a process.
Not at all. There's actually a more structured way to go about it. A good place to start is digging into your performance data from, say, the last 6 to 12 months. Figure out your average monthly results for the key metrics related to your new goal.
Okay, get a baseline.
Exactly. Then consider any seasonality or big swings you've seen in the past. Now, here's something interesting we've noticed. Sometimes teams actually underestimate what they can do, especially if they're planning new strategies or efficiencies. So don't just anchor yourself to past results. Think about potential improvements, too.
Ah, that's a really good point. Don't just look backward. Look at the potential growth levers, too. Okay, so you've got your baseline, considered improvements. What's next for achievability?
Right. So from that informed baseline, then you can set a realistic but still challenging improvement target. Maybe that's aiming for, say, 15% to 25% improvement, depending on your growth plans and the opportunities you see. And then the final step is to adjust that target based on any new resources you might be putting into the campaign, or maybe any new limitations that have popped up.
That feels like a much more grounded, strategic way to set targets, not just pulling numbers out of thin air.
Yeah, it helps make sure your goals are, motivating but also possible, so people feel a sense of achievement, not just inevitable failure.
Okay, let's talk R relevant. How do we make sure our marketing goals are actually helping the business overall and not just vanity metrics? Like a company chasing Instagram likes when their real money comes from direct B2B sales. That kind of disconnect seems like a huge waste.
Oh, absolutely. Relevance is all about that critical alignment. Your marketing goals have to directly support the bigger business objectives, and they need to make sense in the current market. If your marketing team is off doing something totally separate from what the rest of the company is trying to achieve, well, those efforts probably won't get the support or budget they need, no matter how good the marketing stats look on their own.
So the big question really is, does hitting this marketing goal actually move the needle for the business?
Exactly. And here's a kind of handy checklist you can use for alignment. Ask yourself, does this goal directly back up the company's revenue targets or other key growth goals?
Right.
Does it actually tap into a real market opportunity that's out there? Does it speak to the needs or pain points of our target customers? Is it doable with the resources we currently have? And importantly, does it fit in and work with our other marketing activities?
That's a good checklist.
Yeah, if you can confidently say yes to most of those, your goal is probably relevant.
That definitely provides a clear way to check for relevance, making sure paid marketing is a strategic driver, not just some tactical thing happening on the side.
Precisely. It makes sure your campaigns are focused on results that actually matter to the whole organization.
Okay, finally, we get to T, time bound. Why is putting a deadline on these goals so important? Seems obvious, maybe, but why?
Being time-bound, well, it injects urgency, right? And it gives you a defined window for getting things done.
Yeah.
Without a clear deadline, goals can just kind of float around forever.
Yeah, the someday maybe goals.
Yeah, exactly. And it becomes incredibly hard to track progress, keep focus, and ultimately know if you actually succeeded and when.
So it's about getting away from eventually and setting a specific time frame.
Precisely. You need a clear start date and end date for the campaign or the period you're measuring the goal over. And just as important, you should set up regular check-in points during that time. That lets you monitor how you're doing against the timeline, spot any problems early, and, make course corrections if you need to.
What kind of structure works best for those check-ins and timelines?
A pretty robust approach we often recommend involves daily checks on key operational stuff, CTR, CPC, the tactical things, just to make sure the engine is running smoothly.
Right.
Then maybe weekly performance reviews for a slightly bigger picture. Monthly goal assessments are really crucial to see if you're actually on track for the main targets. Quarterly strategic evaluations give you that broader view, a chance to make bigger shifts if needed. And then an annual objective review to look back at the whole year and plan for the future.
That structured timeline creates a real rhythm, doesn't it, for monitoring and accountability?
It does. Make sure you're not just setting goals and forgetting them. You're actively managing towards those targets within that specific time frame.
Okay, great. We've really unpacked the 5 SMART elements.
Yeah.
Now let's get practical. What's the actual process look like for putting this framework into action?
Right. The very first step always is a really thorough audit of where you are right now, your current performance. You need that clear starting point.
Makes sense.
So gather up your historical performance data, maybe the last 12 months for the relevant campaigns. Look for those patterns, trends, what worked, what didn't. Document how you're using your resources right now. Take a look at what competitors are doing and what's happening in the broader market.
It's like taking a detailed snapshot before you start the journey.
Exactly that. Then, step 2 is getting everyone together for a focused goal development workshop. Bring in all the key stakeholders from your team, maybe even other departments if relevant. And having a structured agenda for that workshop is key to making it productive. You'd start by sharing the performance data you gathered. Then, work together to identify the biggest opportunities based on that data and the overall business goals.
That collaborative part seems really important for buy-in and alignment.
Oh, absolutely vital. The next chunk of the workshop is actually drafting those initial SMART goals together. Give it enough time. Then, really important, you need to stress test those draft goals against your actual resources: time, money, people, tech. Is it really feasible?
Right.
And finally, wrap up the workshop by finalizing the goals and agreeing on the exact metrics you'll use to track them.
So a dedicated collaborative session to really hammer it out. What comes after the workshop?
Step 3 is building out your measurement framework. This is the actual system for tracking and assessing progress. It includes figuring out your data collection methods, where's the data coming from, designing reporting templates, how will you show the data, outlining your analysis procedures, how will you make sense of it, setting those review schedules we talked about, and establishing adjustment protocols, like what triggers a change in strategy.
Having that tracking system properly defined seems absolutely essential for keeping things on track.
It really is. And a measurement matrix can be super helpful here. It clearly lays out the metrics, how often each one gets reviewed, and who's responsible at different levels: strategic, tactical, operational.
Oh, okay.
So maybe the marketing director looks at revenue quarterly, the manager looks at ROAS monthly, and the specialist checks CTR daily. Something like that.
That clarifies roles and keeps everyone accountable.
Nice. Exactly. Then step 4 is actually building your detailed implementation plan. This is your roadmap to achieving the goals. Break down the big annual goals into smaller monthly targets. List out all the resources you'll need. Assign clear tasks to team members. Set up your tracking dashboards and systems. Finalize those review schedules.
So turning the big ideas into concrete step-by-step actions.
Precisely. And once you've got those really well-defined SMART goals, documenting them properly is key. A standard goal statement template helps a lot here. A good structure is often action verb plus specific target plus time frame plus maybe some conditions or constraints.
Okay, can you give us a solid example using that template?
Sure. How about generate 1,000 marketing qualified leads from LinkedIn advertising campaigns targeting senior IT decision makers in the healthcare sector with a maximum cost per lead of $75 within the next 90 days.
Yeah, that's super clear. Hits all the smart points, and that template gives it a nice structure. What else should go into the documentation besides the main statement?
Good question. Beyond that core statement, you really want a full goal overview, the main objective, target metrics, timeline, budget. Also, clearly define your success criteria. What's the minimum acceptable result? What's the target? Are there any stretch goals?
Right.
You also need to list out all the resource requirements, team members, tools, tech, budget, any outside help needed. And finally, really detail that tracking mechanism, data sources, reporting frequency, the review process, and importantly, the triggers that would make you adjust your strategy.
That comprehensive documentation really makes sure everyone's on the same page and knows how success is being measured.
Absolutely. Now look, even with the best planning, you're probably going to run into some common challenges when you're setting and working towards these SMART goals. What are some of those typical hurdles people face, and how can we get around them?
Yeah, one that springs to mind immediately is just setting targets that are, realistic, but still ambitious. It feels easy to either aim way too high or maybe play it too safe.
That's a really common one. That top-down, bottom-up approach we mentioned can be really useful here. Start by setting those aspirational targets based on what the business needs. That's your top-down view.
Okay.
Then do that realistic assessment based on your actual resources, past performance, market conditions. That's the bottom-up view. The trick is finding that sweet spot, that informed middle ground that balances the ambition with what's actually feasible.
Right, bringing the big vision together with the on-the-ground reality.
Yeah.
Makes sense. What's another common issue?
Keeping everything aligned can be tricky, especially as campaigns run and things change. What seemed relevant at the start might drift a bit. The fix here is often about creating a clear goal hierarchy in your organization.
A hierarchy. How does that work?
Well, you start with the big company objectives, then define department goals that directly feed into those, then specific campaign targets that support the department goals, and maybe even individual metrics that ladder up to the campaign targets. It creates this clear line of sight so everyone sees how their work fits into the bigger picture.
Like a cascade of connected goals. Okay. And what about when things just change unexpectedly? Market shifts, business pivots,
Whoa.
Things that suddenly make your carefully planned goals seem maybe less relevant?
Yeah, that happens. And that's where the time-bound part actually needs some built-in flex. So instead of rigid fixed numbers, maybe you set range-based targets, like aiming for leads between X and Y.
Ah, okay.
And those quarterly reviews we talked about become super important check-in points to reassess if the goals are still relevant, still achievable, given any big changes. And crucially, try to document beforehand what kinds of changes or triggers would actually make you formally review and possibly adjust your goals. It helps you adapt proactively, not just react when things go sideways.
So structure, but with some planned adaptability built in. Got it. Now thinking more broadly, what are some key best practices for really making SMART goals work successfully over the long term?
Okay, well, consistent review cycles are just non-negotiable. We've touched on this. But that mix of daily checks, weekly reviews, monthly assessments, quarterly strategy, that's what keeps you honest and on track.
Right.
Clear. Open communication is just as vital. Make sure everyone involved knows the goals. Give regular, honest updates on progress. Use transparent reporting. And really encourage open feedback. Create channels for it.
Communication keeps everyone pulling together, informed, accountable.
Exactly. And finally, you really need to foster a culture of continuous optimization, paid marketing changes constantly, right? So embrace testing different things. Document what you learn, the good and the bad. Make adjustments based on data, not just hunches, and be ready to scale up the things that actually work.
It sounds like an ongoing loop. Plan, do, check, adjust, learn, repeat.
That's a great way to put it. Precisely. Now, for everyone listening who's maybe feeling inspired to get going with SMART goals, what are some immediate concrete steps they could take, like right now?
Okay, let's map out a quick action plan. For immediate action, say in the next 48 hours. First, get that initial goal-setting workshop on the calendar with your main team. Second, start pulling together that historical performance data you'll need it for the workshop. And third, make a list of all the key stakeholders who really need to be part of this process.
Excellent starting point. Then, maybe in week 1, the goal is to finish that deep dive into your current performance, the audit. based on that audit and your initial workshop chat, draft your first stab at some SMART goals. And start thinking about that measurement framework, how you'll actually track progress.
Right. Then week 2 could be about finalizing those goals, getting feedback and buy-in from everyone involved. Start setting up the actual tracking systems, the dashboards, and then we'll begin implementing your campaigns, guided by these new, clear, SMART goals.
Perfect. And then for that first month, the focus should really be on consistent monitoring, watching those metrics, making your first optimization tweaks based on the early data you see coming in, and holding that first formal performance review against the new goals you set.
It provides a clear path to get started and build that momentum. Implementing SMART goals isn't just a one-time thing, is it? It's more like an ongoing discipline. It really forms the foundation for any successful paid marketing.
Exactly right. Making sure your goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. That's how you turn those fuzzy wishes into actual, concrete targets that drive real, meaningful results for the business.
So just to recap the core ideas.
Yeah.
Know exactly what you want to achieve, specific. Know exactly how you'll measure it, measurable. Make sure it's stretching, but possible, achievable. Ensure it directly helps the business, relevant, and give it a clear deadline, time-bound.
And always remember that things change. The market, your performance. So be prepared to regularly look at your goals and adjust them when the data or the situation tells you to.
That's a crucial final point. Now, as you listening think about your own marketing work, here's something to chew on. How might adapting a really rigorous, disciplined approach to setting SMART goals fundamentally change the game for your marketing efforts? And maybe even for your overall business success? It's definitely a question worth its own deep dive. Thanks for joining us.